Shield of Heracles. Heracles' shield, described in a poem once credited to Hesiod, was basically Greek fanfiction gone wild. It wasn't just armor. It was a moving painting of chaos. Lions, wars, monsters, even personifications of fear and strife were stamped into it. The descriptions go on for pages. Fire blazed, rivers surged, serpents hissed, all carved in bronze. It was like an action movie compressed onto one surface. The idea wasn't realism, it was intimidation. Enemies looked at it and saw the entire nightmare catalog of Greek myth staring back. In battle, the shield amplified Heracles' image as the ultimate hero. Not refined like Achilles, not plain like Ajax. This was mythic branding. Heracles carried the chaos of the world because he was the only one strong enough to handle it. Think of it less as a shield and more as a billboard of terror. And it worked. Aegis. The Aegis was Zeus's shield, but Athena made it iconic. Some stories call it armor. Others say it's a cloak. Either way, it was less about blocking spears and more about terrifying entire armies. What made it so scary? The centerpiece, Medusa's head. Staring at the Aegis wasn't just creepy, it was instant panic. Some myths even say it roared like thunder when shaken. Imagine a shield that doubles as a horror show and a sound system. In Homer's Iliad, Athena storms into battle with the Aegis. Soldiers don't fight, they scatter. It wasn't defense, it was shock and awe. The name itself means violent rush, and that's exactly how it worked. The symbol lasted long after the myths. Greeks stamped it on coins, carved it on statues, and turned it into shorthand for divine protection. Even today, under someone's aegis still means under their protection. Games, novels, even company logos borrow it. So, the aegis wasn't just a shield, it was Olympus's power badge and the fastest way to make your enemies wish they stayed home. Shield of Achilles. The Shield of Achilles wasn't just armor, it was a storybook hammered in bronze. Hephaestus, the god of smithing, forged it after Thetis begged for new gear for her son. Instead of a simple shield, he built the entire universe on it. Homer describes it in the Iliad. Stars, oceans, farmland, weddings, battles, dancers, rivers, life itself carved in circles. While most shields showed dents, Achilles carried the first illustrated encyclopedia. And yes, it worked in battle. Massive, gleaming, impossible to pierce. But the real power wasn't defense, it was symbolism. Achilles fought with rage, but his shield showed peace, joy, and ordinary life. Everything he'd never get to enjoy. Later writers loved the idea so much they copied it. Virgil gave Aeneas a version in the Aeneid. Scholars still call it one of the earliest total works of art. Think of it as the original cinematic universe, literally welded into bronze. So, the Shield of Achilles wasn't just protection, it was the world itself, strapped to the arm of a doomed hero. Shield of Ajax. Ajax's shield was a tank on an arm strap. Homer calls it like a tower, 7 layers of leather, capped with bronze. Heavy, bulky, unbreakable. It matched Ajax perfectly. He wasn't flashy, he was the wall of the Greeks. While others had tricks, Ajax had raw defense. His shield didn't inspire awe, it just stopped you cold. Sometimes the best flex is being impossible to move. Shield of Perseus. Perseus didn't technically have his own shield. He had a mirror. Athena gave him a polished bronze shield so shiny it worked like a reflective screen. Why? Because looking Medusa in the eyes was instant game over. Instead of charging in blind, Perseus fought smart. He watched her reflection in the shield, crept closer, and sliced her head clean off. After that, the shield wasn't just defense, it became the trick that made him legendary. Later, Medusa's head itself was mounted on Athena's aegis. One shield birthed another symbol. It's like the spin-off that became more famous than the original. So, Perseus's shield was less about brute force and more about clever angles. Literally, Shield of Aeneas. Virgil clearly took notes from Homer, because Aeneas's shield in the Aeneid is almost a remix of Achilles. Forged by Vulcan, it wasn't just protective. It was a prophecy. Instead of stars and rivers, it showed Rome's glorious future. On its surface, key moments like Romulus founding the city, Augustus beating Antony and Cleopatra, and parades of Roman triumph. Basically, the shield spoiled the ending of Roman history before it happened. Unlike Achilles' shield, which reflected the whole world, Aeneas' shield narrowed its vision. Rome was destined to win. Every blow Aeneas blocked was also a reminder that fate itself had his back. It wasn't only divine metalwork, it was a morale boost, a cosmic "you can't lose" card. Ancile, sacred Roman shield. Rome wasn't just about legions with big square scuda. There was also the Ancile, a sacred oval shield said to have literally fallen from the sky during Numa Pompilius's reign. Legend claimed that Rome's survival depended on it. To protect it, Numa ordered 11 perfect copies made so enemies couldn't tell the real one apart. Imagine shell games, but with divine hardware. The Ancile wasn't carried into battle by just anyone. It was guarded by the Salii, Rome's dancing priests, who paraded it through the city each march in sacred ceremonies. No sword, no spear, just rhythmic steps and chanting. The shield symbolized Rome's divine protection, a reminder that their power came from the gods themselves. In short, a heavenly warranty plan for an empire, Svalinn. Not every shield was built for battle. Some, like Svalinn, were built to keep the world from melting. In Norse myth, this massive shield stands between the sun and the earth, blocking its deadly heat. The Grimnismal says if Svalinn ever fell, everything would burn. Seas would boil, mountains would crack, and goodbye humans. Basically, Svalinn is the cosmic air conditioner keeping us all alive. It's not flashy, not decorated with monsters or gods. Its power is in silence, standing firm so the story of the world can keep going. Without Svalinn, no Midgard, no myths, no nothing. That's a lot of weight for one shield. Pridwen. Arthur's shield, Pridwen, wasn't just wood. It carried an image of the Virgin Mary right on its front. Imagine charging into battle with your armor doubling as a holy icon. This wasn't just art. It was strategy. Mary's image meant Arthur wasn't just another king. He was God's chosen fighter. Enemies weren't just facing a knight. They were facing divine endorsement. Geoffrey of Monmouth writes about Arthur with Pridwen in one hand and Excalibur in the other, slicing through enemies like a medieval comic book hero. It wasn't just strength, it was faith stamped into metal. Pridwen blurred the line between myth, religion, and propaganda. It turned Arthur from a man into a legend backed by heaven itself. Pentangle Shield. Sir Gawain's shield wasn't famous for killing dragons or shooting lightning. Its power was symbolic. On the outside was a golden pentangle star, and on the inside a painting of the Virgin Mary. It was half battlefield tool, half medieval TED Talk. The pentangle wasn't just decoration, it stood for 5 sets of 5. Gawain's 5 senses, 5 fingers, 5 wounds of Christ, 5 joys of Mary, and 5 knightly virtues: generosity, fellowship, purity, courtesy, and compassion. Basically, the ultimate to-do list, written in geometry. The Virgin Mary's image on the inside worked like a motivational poster. Every time Gawain lifted his shield, he wasn't just blocking swords. He was looking straight at his faith. It was protection outside and reassurance inside. Of course, the poem shows Gawain slipping up, proving even the best knight falls short of perfection. That's the point. The shield didn't mark him as flawless. It marked him as striving, an ideal every knight was supposed to chase, even if they failed. It's one of the rare shields remembered not for battles won, but for values carried. Joseph of Arimathea's shield. Arthurian legend ties this shield to Joseph of Arimathea, the man who buried Jesus. According to the Grail cycle, his shield bore a red cross painted with Christ's own blood. This wasn't just another knightly emblem. The red cross made it sacred, linking it directly to the crucifixion and the Grail quest. Whoever carried it wasn't just another warrior. They were marked as God's chosen. Unlike Arthur's Pridwen or Gawain's Pentangle, this shield wasn't symbolic. It was holy relic territory. Its power came from its origin, not from who wielded it. Carrying it was basically walking into battle with divine proof of destiny. Shield of El Cid. El Cid, Spain's national hero, carried a shield described in the Cantar de Mio Cid, the 12th century epic. Unlike most shields in this list, his wasn't mythical. It was practical, heavy, and scarred from real war. The poem describes him wielding it with sword Tizona, charging into battle against both Moors and rival Christians. Decorated with rich designs, it symbolized his honor, but it wasn't tucked away in a church. This was a working knight's gear. The shield embodied El Cid's mix of nobility and grit, not just a commander, but a fighter who led from the front. It wasn't about prophecy or divine artwork. It was about survival, courage, and reputation earned on the field. This was a real knight's shield, and not a relic. Duban, Shield of Cuchulainn. Cuchulainn, Ireland's ultimate one-man army, carried a shield called Duban. Unlike some legendary shields, this one didn't have glowing runes or cosmic carvings, but it didn't need them. What made Duban terrifying was the man behind it. In stories, when Cuchulainn went into battle, his shield roared. Literally, the rattling noise echoed so fiercely that enemies panicked before his spear even flew. Imagine your opponent's armor making horror movie sound effects before the fight even starts. That was Duban. It was polished to shine bright in sunlight, dazzling foes and making him look larger than life. But more than the design, it symbolized endurance. Cuchulainn was often the lone defender of Ulster, standing against entire armies. His shield became shorthand for his resilience, battered, unbroken, always holding. Duban wasn't ornate, but its legend didn't need decoration. It was remembered because of the warrior who carried it. Sometimes the weapon's story is just the hero's story, hammered into wood and iron. Feizi's shield and spear. Not every legendary shield came from battle. Some came from philosophy. Feizi, a thinker in ancient China, told a parable about a merchant. This guy bragged his spear could pierce anything, then bragged his shield could block everything. Of course, someone asked the obvious. What happens if you stab your shield with your spear? The salesman froze. Game over. That riddle gave birth to the word Mao Dun, which means contradiction in Chinese. The shield wasn't magical, but it still reshaped language. Instead of blocking arrows, it blocked bad arguments. So while Achilles had armor forged by gods and Cuchulainn had a battle-screaming shield, China had a thought experiment so sharp it's still part of everyday speech. A weapon made of words. Oba's shield, Yoruba. In Yoruba tradition, kings, called Obas, carried shields that weren't just for war. These were decorated with bronze, carvings, and patterns that radiated authority. Think less battlefield gear, more mobile throne. The Oba's shield showed divine protection and the ruler's sacred duty to defend the people. Holding one meant you weren't just a king, you were chosen, with the gods on your side. It wasn't about dueling enemies. It was about commanding respect before a fight even began. The Oba's shield was political armor, turning defense into a display of power. Xingtian's shield. Now for one of the most metal shield bearers in myth, Xingtian. In Chinese legend, he challenged the Yellow Emperor and lost, badly. His head was chopped off. But instead of staying dead, Xingtian kept fighting. With his nipples for eyes and his belly for a mouth, he grabbed a battle axe and a shield, marching back into the fray. His shield doesn't get flashy descriptions, but that's kind of the point. It's not about what it's made of, it's about what it means. This shield became the symbol of unstoppable defiance, a physical, "you can't shut me up," aimed straight at the heavens. Even decapitated, he wasn't done resisting. Later writers used Xingtian as a warning, or as inspiration, depending on how you look at it. Either way, the shield wasn't just defense. It was his banner of rebellion, proof that even without a head, you could still hold your ground. Isihlangu, Nguni shield. Finally, a shield that's less enchanted bronze and more legendary by reputation. The Isihlangu was the great war shield of the Nguni peoples of southern Africa, especially the Zulu. Made from tough cowhide and stretching nearly as tall as the warrior carrying it, this thing wasn't just equipment, it was an identity. Shaka Zulu famously reformed his armies using these shields, drilling formations where the Isihlangu wasn't just protection but also a psychological weapon. Imagine a wall of towering hide shields closing in on you. That's intimidation before a single spear is thrown. But the Isihlangu also lived beyond the battlefield. It marked rank, clan, and even became part of ceremonial dance. In other words, it shielded more than bodies. It shielded culture itself. Even today, stylized versions appear in regalia and symbolism, carrying the echo of an era when a shield could define an empire. Hylian Shield, The Legend of Zelda. If there's a celebrity shield in gaming, it's this one. The Hylian Shield has been strapped to Link's back in nearly every Legend of Zelda game since Ocarina of Time. Big, blue, unbreakable looking, and stamped with the red Loftwing crest and Triforce. It's basically the Gucci handbag of Hyrule. Lore-wise, it's tied to the royal family, passed down through generations, and often locked up in a castle chest like it's too sacred for regular adventurers. But once you get it, it's top-tier defense, practically indestructible in older games, and still ridiculously durable in Breath of the Wild. It's more than a shield, though. It's a badge that says, yeah, I'm the chosen hero. Fans argue over which version is the best design, but all of them serve the same role, turning Link into walking Hyrule brand merch. It's not just protection, it's legacy. Greatshield of Artorias, Dark Souls. Now, onto a shield that's heavy with tragedy, literally and figuratively. The Greatshield of Artorias isn't just some oversized hunk of metal. One of the most legendary figures in Dark Souls lore. He marched into the darkness to stop the abyss, failed, and left behind this colossal shield as a relic. In-game, it's a tank's dream. Insanely high stability, absurd defense, and the kind of poise that lets you shrug off blows. But there's a trade-off. It's heavy as guilt and slower than a Monday morning. The lore twist? Artorias actually broke his arm and couldn't even wield it properly, which only adds to the tragedy. Players who grab it basically cosplay as the knight who tried to hold back the void. In the Souls community, it's less item and more memorial, a reminder of a hero swallowed by the dark. Spellbreaker, The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Some shields block swords. This one blocks sorcery. Spellbreaker is an ancient artifact in Skyrim, often linked to the Daedric prince Perseus, though its origins feel older than the mountains themselves. It's not just a hunk of dwarven metal. When you raise it, it casts a magical ward that eats spells for breakfast. Fireballs? Cancelled. Lightning bolts? Denied. It's the ultimate no thanks to enemy mages. For players, it's a godsend in mage-heavy fights, practically turning dragons into minor inconveniences. Lore says the shield chooses its wielder carefully, never staying with the unworthy for long. That makes it feel less like loot and more like a judgment. And in true Elder Scrolls fashion, it's both legendary artifact and min-maxer's dream. Where most gear feels temporary, Spellbreaker feels like it's been here since the dawn of Nirn, and it'll be here long after your character's bones are dust. Shields weren't just about blocking blows, they were about blocking fate, fear, and sometimes bad logic. From heroes to kings, every culture gave them meaning far bigger than defense. And that's why these stories still stick today. If you enjoyed this, stick around for the next one. And hey, subscribing wouldn't hurt.